Welcome to the show. This is the Dickson County Election 2022 podcast, and I am your host, Justin Spurlock. I write a newspaper article every week for the Dickson Post about local history here in Dickson County, and I also host a radio show on WDKN every Saturday morning at 7 and 8 a.m. Now, the reason that I wanted to do this podcast was to bring you some more information about local Dickson County candidates who are running for election in the 2022 campaign season. Today, my guest is Talmage Woodall, who is running for General Sessions Judge right here in Dickson County. Talmage, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me on the show today.
Hey, thanks a lot for coming in. I really appreciate it. So, real quickly, tell everybody the exact office that you're running for.
I'm running for, first of all, my name is Talmage Woodall, and I'm running for Dickson County General Sessions Judge.
All right, and I appreciate you coming in the studio. I want to know more about exactly what you do as a judge, or what you would do as a judge. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about your life and who you are. And
absolutely.
Whenever I saw some of your signs going up, I saw the last name Woodall, and it immediately took me back to my historical roots, because I am a historian. I love local history. I write an article every week in the Dickson Post about local history, and I'm always looking for different ideas for stories, and there's a name that's come up during my research, and it's Tom Woodall. And so one of the first things I asked you when we started talking about doing this podcast was, how are you related to old Tom Woodall? Because a lot of people in downtown Dickson and in Dickson all around Dickson County are going to know who that is. Can you just tell us real quickly how you're related to Mr. Tom?
Tom Woodall was my grandfather on my dad's side.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. And he was really well known for being into politics, and he also was a businessman. Tell us a little bit about Tom for those who are like, I know who Tom Woodall is, but maybe don't remember the details.
My grandfather ran Taylor Funeral Home for years, and he was big into politics. One thing I remember my dad telling me, he was a big Republican, and he was Republican when there weren't too many Republicans here in Dickson County. And I remember him telling me that there's probably about my grandfather and maybe 10 other people used to have the Republican meetings in the basement of the Taylor Funeral Home. Well, that was probably in the 60s, early 60s. So, and that was the only Republicans in the county.
and for people listening who maybe are kind of younger, and don't know the history of politics in this area, it was very different. I guess now when we have these national and state elections, a lot of Republicans get elected nowadays. But back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, even mostly into the Democratic. 60s, it was mostly Democratic around here. So he was back then sort of the minority.
He was. Very small minority.
And I read an article I was actually reading earlier this morning about that whole Democrat-Republican thing, about some of the stuff that he did. But he was very well known around here, involved in politics. And,
he was.
And so that's got to be pretty cool, kind of having that lineage.
It is. I do have, going back with my family, first of all, I want to talk about my present family I've got.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I am married. My wife is Sarah Grace. We have two beautiful daughters. Gwenny, who is 9. She's about to be 10 this month on the 29th. And we have Willa Grace, who is going to be 2 on the 25th. We live here in Dickson. We enjoy living here. I'm fortunate to be able to raise our children here in Dickson County. But I have some pretty deep roots in this county from my family, and you would appreciate this being a history buff. My family has probably been here in this county for about 200 years. Charles Thompson, who was a Revolutionary War veteran, moved here from North Carolina and moved into the Yellow Creek area between 1807 and 1810. And my great-grandmother, Stella Thompson, is a direct descendant of Charles. Stella married Talmage Taylor, one of the Taylor brothers who started Taylor Funeral Home. Their daughter was my grandmother, Jean Taylor. Jean Taylor married Tom Woodall, my grandfather. They had my dad, Tommy Woodall, and they had me. And now my uncle, Tommy Marvin, who owns Taylor Funeral Home now, he is my mom's brother. So Tommy was working under my grandfather, Tom Woodall. My dad and his sister and my mom married, so Taylor Funeral Home is still in our in our family.
That's awesome. As a historical person, that is very fascinating to me.
It
And
is.
Taylor Funeral Home, really, for those listening, I'm going to kind of nerd out on the history stuff for just a second here. But Taylor Funeral Home is one of the oldest businesses in Dickson.
It is. That one, I think Morrison and Fuson are the two oldest businesses. And Bo Morrison is actually on my campaign committee. He's a friend of mine. So
that's really cool. So the roots are really deep in this area.
They are. And actually, Charles Thompson, he is buried here in Dickson County, right off of Thompson Road, right off Yellow Creek Road.
And Yellow Creek is a beautiful, first off, it's a beautiful part of the county, but it's also one of the oldest areas. People don't realize it, but that was some really good land. So those early pioneers would come out that way, and they'd kind of skip over the rough terrain of the east part of the county until they could get over there to Yellow Creek. And so a very historic part of the county too.
Yes, it is.
I love going out there and just kind of exploring.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
pretty cool area.
Definitely. So thank you for telling us a little bit about your family history. And you spoke a little bit about your immediate family, your family, and you live here in Dickson. Take us back to sort of your childhood, and what do you remember? Because you and I are we talked before the show, we're about the same age. We both graduated high school exactly 20 years ago.
That's right. It doesn't seem like it, does it?
No, it goes pretty quick. But what are your memories of Dickson, and kind of what do you look back fondly on when you think of your childhood around here?
Well, I grew up here in downtown Dickson, right off Merle Street, right down the road from Taylor Funeral Home, right down the road from, I went to church at First Presbyterian Church. Downtown Dickson has changed quite a bit since 1990. When we moved here, when I was 5, we moved from Benton County. I was living there for a little bit. My dad was working as a prosecutor over there. I grew up here, went to elementary school here through the 6th grade. And between 7th grade and 12th grade, my parents, they sent me to private school at Battleground Academy. And it was pretty cool at the time because during that time frame when I started, there was probably 12 to 15 kids from Dickson County who went to BGA. Mm-hmm. There was actually 3 other guys in my grade. We were all in the same grade. We all graduated together. One of them, Ross Smith, is my treasurer, my campaign treasurer. That was a great experience. At BGA. I played football there, which was pretty much a year-round sport. If you weren't playing football during the season, you were always doing some kind of off-season conditioning. I had a really good time there. I had friends both at my school and in Dickson County. And I graduated from there in 2002, and I decided at that point to go to the University of Alabama. I hope nobody holds that against me.
And that's kind of, let's stop right there for just a second, because I'm curious, how does a guy who grew up in Dickson, Tennessee make his way? Yeah. Now, I love watching the football team. Yep. Don't get me wrong. It's great. I love their football team, but how did that happen? Take me down that road.
I kind of wanted to venture out a little bit. You know, a lot of my friends went to UT. I didn't really want to go to Knoxville, and I didn't really want to go anywhere in Nashville because it was a little too close. And I visited Ole Miss and Alabama, and it was between those two schools, and I picked Alabama because a lot of my friends at BGA went to Ole Miss, so I was like, I want to go to Alabama.
And look, this would be before Nick Saban.
No, absolutely.
So it wasn't a football decision.
It was not. No, it was not. I did like the football team. I grew up kind of an Alabama fan, but I went down there. I loved the school. I loved the people down there. I joined a fraternity. Our fraternity was right across the street from the football stadium. The football days, atmosphere there was great, even though the team wasn't that great. I think one year they might have won 10 games. Yeah. And they went through 4 or 5 different head coaches.
That was a tough time.
A lot of turmoil. Like right when I graduated, like a few weeks after I graduated in December of 2006, they hired Nick Saban, and everything's been changed since. You know, the population of the campus. There's so many more kids that go there. I think they're out of state. The out-of-state students that go there. There's more out-of-state students than in-state students, which is crazy.
Yes, you're right. I've read something about that, and it really started to uptick when they started winning football games. And I mentioned this at the high school a few days ago. I said, things change at your school when you have successful sports programs, and the most successful sports program, or the one that's the most important, and I know people are going to get frustrated with me, basketball and baseball, and I coach soccer,
Yep.
but football, if you have a good football program, everything kind of feeds off of it.
That's true.
I truly believe that.
That is true.
Alabama, the University of Alabama is a testament to that, because
absolutely.
when they started winning football games, more people wanted to go to school there. It's crazy, I know.
Yep.
Sports is not supposed to have anything to do with academics, but
That's true.
The correlation is there.
And so I got 2 majors from Alabama. I majored in history and criminal justice. And around my junior year, I didn't really know. I couldn't decide if I wanted to go law enforcement, military route. And I said, well, I'm just going to take the LSAT. Maybe I can go to law school. And I don't remember taking that. I remember taking it, but I don't remember my scores. And I remember getting a score good enough to get into, some schools that I was thinking about going, law schools I was thinking about going to. But after I graduated, I was accepted to Nashville School of Law here in Nashville. And I decided on that mostly because it was cost effective. The cost was a lot cheaper.
Sure.
And the teachers there are working lawyers and judges. So you get a practical legal education. And I could work during the day and earn some money and still go to school at night. It's most law schools were full-time law school is 3 years. This is a 4-year program. That didn't really bother me. So I graduated Alabama December of 2006, and I went to start law school February of 2007. And let's see, before that, my first job coming out of law school, but I'll tell you that before my first job out of college. During the summers in college, I worked. One summer I worked in Tuscaloosa cutting grass. 2 summers actually. The summer after I graduated high school, I worked at Mark Brower, the McDonald's distributor.
Yeah.
For a summer, and the summer after my freshman year, I did the same thing.
I did the same. I worked at a factory, and I cut grass, and I worked for the college doing some kind of maintenance stuff. Back then, you just do whatever you can at that point.
Exactly, and it makes you appreciate. My dad told me, he was like, "If you don't get a degree, this is the kind of job you'll be doing the rest of your life."
Sure.
Kind of that kind of threat.
Yeah.
Which there's nothing wrong with working at Mark Brower. Absolutely not. It's a great job.
But sometimes it can motivate you to go back to school and get a higher grade.
Absolutely.
Well, I might could do something with this school thing if I take
absolutely.
it serious. So.
And one summer in college, I actually did through the criminal justice program, I did a internship at the DA's office in Tuscaloosa, which was pretty cool.
Well, that's interesting to me because, you're talking about your background a little bit, and I didn't hear you say a whole lot of lawyers were in your family. And a lot of times when I talk to people who get into law, maybe their dad had a practice or their uncle or grandfather or something like that. But it seems like it's kind of almost a left turn for you, maybe a little different from maybe what you were originally going to do.
My dad he's a retired judge, and before that he was a lawyer. So he was, I think he was the only lawyer in the family. Or immediate family.
Did he try to convince you to be or is that because baseball players have a son and then some people are like they make their son be a baseball player or whatever or a coach and then has a son who becomes a coach. Was it like that in your family or
no? He wasn't. He just he said if you want to go to law school, go ahead, you can do whatever you want. So he didn't push me anyway, but he was excited when I decided to go. I can tell you that much.
Did you kind of want to kind of be like your dad? I mean, we all kind of want to be like our dad, I guess, but did that kind of... Do you think if he wasn't a lawyer, you'd have still gone into it?
I think so. I think I would have, because I just like... I like being in the courtroom and being in a jury trial. And the only way to do that is become a lawyer.
What do you like about it? What kind of like... Because you got to like your job, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you got to like something about it. What is it that kind of draws you to it?
Well, being an assistant DA, going to trial, one thing you're looking for is truth and justice. That's what you're doing, and that's what I enjoyed. When I take a case to trial, I'm going to prove the truth and to get justice for a victim or a family or anybody involved in the crime. So that's what motivates me. So
take me back. So you're at the University of Alabama. Mm-hmm. You leave there, and you start kind of dabbling in the field.
Yep.
You eventually end up back in Dickson County. Tell me kind of how that works.
Okay. So when I was going to law school, I was actually living in Nashville. And my first job, because I worked at the Secretary of State's office in the Publications Division. Richard Arnold interviewed me, got me a job there. And what we did basically there, we, whenever they would change any kind of codes, all the codes, whether it be criminal code, all the code books from the state legislature, we would go in there and edit the codes. And we were also in charge of the Tennessee Blue Books. So one of my jobs there was to deliver all the blue books to all the representatives and senators.
I love those. Yeah. I can't wait for Mary Littleton to bring me mine to the high school every year.
Exactly. So that was a good job. But about my second year of law school, I was trying to find a job more in the legal field. And there was a job opening in Williamson County with the circuit court clerks as a law clerk / court officer. And what I mean by court officer, that's not a bailiff, sheriff's deputy with a gun. Court officer is basically somebody, I'd wear a suit every day. First of all, I got interviewed. There was 4 judges at the time in Williamson County. It was Judge Tim Easter, who was on the Court of Criminal Appeals now. Judge Robbie Bill, he is off the bench in private practice now. There was Judge Jeff Bivens, who's on the Tennessee Supreme Court now. At the time, he was a circuit court judge. And Judge Jim Martin, who is still a circuit court judge in Williamson County. They hired me. That was probably one of the best jobs that a law student could ever have. Because 1 month I'd be in criminal court, and the next month I'd be in civil court. And one of my job responsibilities, I would open court, do the prayer, and then my main job in court was if there was any issues that came up that I needed to do some quick research on, and the judge was on the bench, I'd go do that. I would hand up exhibits to the judge. But basically, I just got to sit there and watch. I could watch assistant DAs argue cases. I got to watch criminal defense lawyers argue cases. When we had a jury trial, I was responsible for the jury. So once the jury was picked, escorted them to the jury room. Anytime we had a break, they needed anything, that was my job. Another interesting thing about this job, whenever they were done with the trial and they got to go and deliberate, I got to sit by the door. And I would make sure, if they had any questions, I would get the question, give it to the judge, go back in there and address it. If they need any water, food, any kind of breaks, I manned the door to the jury room. And I got to listen to some of the things they would argue about. And it was very interesting because I learned quickly right there that you never know what a jury is going to do or what they're thinking. No matter how hard either side's arguing a point during a trial, it might sink in, it might not. But that was an interesting experience, and that was a great job.
It sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that was during criminal court and civil court mostly. I would sit through a lot of divorce cases, and I learned quickly I really didn't want to do that. Even though it could be lucrative, it seemed like a headache to me.
And that's good that you got the experience to realize what you didn't want to do, in addition to what you did want to do. And
I learned, just sitting there, man, this lawyer's doing a really good job, or this lawyer's not doing a good job, or could be doing something a lot better than what he or she's doing. And I worked with some great judges. I was very fortunate to work with those 4 circuit court judges. They were very intelligent, and it was just an awesome opportunity for a law student. And I worked there till I finished law school. So now I graduated law school in December of 2010, and I was still working as a law clerk in Williamson County. And 2011 was kind of a rough year for me because the bar exam, they only offer the state bar exam twice a year. I think in February and July. And I was unsuccessful the first 2 times I took it. I wasn't successful till the 3rd time I took it, and it's made me a better person because I had to deal with failure, and how I learned just I wasn't successful, but I kept pushing, and I was determined to be successful and pass the bar exam, and I eventually did.
That's got to be tough though when you don't pass the first time. Did you ever think about quitting, or was it always I got this? I can
maybe
do this.
once. I mean, it's because
I'm sure the thought has to cross your mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating because you work so hard in law school, and this test is pretty much everything that you've ever covered in 2 days, and it's a gauntlet. And I went through it 3 times, and I wasn't going to let it put me down. I worked this hard to get a law license, and then, I was going to practice law, and I wasn't going to let it down, push me down, and I was eventually successful. And that was in April of 2012. And after that, I hung a shingle in Williamson County. I started there because I knew a lot more people there, and I did 85% criminal defense work, mostly in Williamson. I went to Dickson County, Hickman County, Davidson County, anywhere where I can get appointments, anywhere somebody would pay me to represent them, I would do it. I did that for a little less than a year, and then in beginning of 2013, I got a job opportunity at a law firm in Nashville, a plaintiff's firm. And I learned a lot doing that, but I wasn't in the courtroom as much. I was doing a lot of insurance adjusters. It was a good experience, but it just wasn't for me. I thought it would be. I was thankful for the opportunity. But about September of 2013, I learned of a job opening back home in Dickson County at the DA's office. At the time, it was Dan Alsbrooks was the DA.
Oh, yeah.
He was the elected DA. And I knew Dan Alsbrooks. Grew up with his son, Lou. I was friends with him.
I think he was another 2002 graduate,
He was.
if I remember right.
He was. Lou Alsbrooks was.
Yeah.
Still friends with him. And I went and interviewed with Dan, and I was fortunate enough to get hired. And I started at the DA's office in, October 1st of 2013. And my first job there, I was the DUI prosecutor. I prosecuted all the DUIs, vehicular homicides, and vehicular assaults in Dickson County, Humphreys County, and Cheatham counties. And for people who are not aware, our judicial district consists of Dickson, Cheatham, Houston, Stewart, and Humphreys County. So there's 5 counties that as an office, General Ray Crouch, he's the elected DA. We're assigned to those 5 counties, and those are the counties we prosecute in our office. I did that for till about March of 2015. At that point, Ray Crouch had been elected DA, and he assigned me to Houston County. And I had Houston County solely for a few years, where I handled everything, juvenile court, general sessions court, circuit court, anything from a public intox to a first-degree murder. All the cases that came out of that county.
Wow.
Yeah. They were all my responsibility. It's not a very big county, so the caseload is pretty manageable for one person to handle. But I've enjoyed it over there. I still prosecute over there in circuit court. And then in beginning of 2020, Kerry Thompson had retired from our office, and we needed some more help in Dickson County because the caseload in Dickson County Circuit Court is pretty. It's a large caseload.
Right, we have a lot more people.
Yeah,
here,
a lot more people. And there's 4 assistant DAs assigned to Dickson County Circuit Court, and we split the caseload together. So I kind of took. I'm still handling Dickson. Currently, I'm handling Dickson County Circuit Court. I've got a caseload there, and let's see, I'm there on odd months, and I've got Houston County cases even months. So I've got a week next week. I will be in Houston County, so Circuit Court. Judge David Wolf will be presiding. So.
I think we all know Judge David Wolf.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Yeah, he's good, and he's been involved in some pretty high-profile cases.
Yes, lately, so has General Crouch.
Yeah.
So I've been an assistant DA for 9 years, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this job. I prosecuted 45 jury trials. Most recently, prosecuted Kenny Niles. I don't know if you're familiar with that case. It was a double homicide case and arson. It occurred right over there off McFarland Street, kind of close to the high school in 2015. It was an interesting case because, well, first of all, it was tried in January of 2020 as a death penalty case. I was not involved in that first trial. But it was a hung jury. It was right before COVID happened. So we were still having courts and everything was normal. And it was a hung jury. And so when a hung jury happens, a mistrial is granted. That means the charges are not dismissed. It just means that the state will get an opportunity to try it again. So that's what happened. So we eventually tried it first week of April this year. We took the death penalty off the table, which really sped the process along, because a death penalty case, there's a lot. You got to go a lot more in depth with the jury. So jury selection is not as long of a process in a first degree murder case as opposed to a death penalty case. We tried it for a week. It was myself, General Crouch, and Assistant DA Jennifer Stribling. We had a 3-person team, along with Josh Etheridge, who is our investigator. He helps out a lot with our technical, as far as slideshows, putting them on so we can present our proof. And this case was very interesting because it had to deal with a lot of circumstantial evidence that all led to Kenny Niles is the one who committed this awful crime against these 2 people and committed the arson, burned their house down with their bodies in it. And they were guilty across the board. Like I said, like I told you a minute ago, our goal, and I'm sure if you interviewed General Crouch, he'd tell you the same thing. Our goal as an assistant DA is when you go to trial, you go to seek the truth and to seek justice. And we did it that week. It was very satisfying. And the victim's family had been waiting 7 years for that, and they were very relieved. They finally got some closure. Last year I tried that was my second murder trial. The year before that, I tried 2021, April 2021. It was actually a Houston County first-degree murder trial, where an individual, Kenny Spears, had murdered his wife. It happened in Houston County, but we changed the venue to Dickson County because the victim was pretty well known in Houston County. And they came back guilty on, it was a first-degree murder case. They came back guilty on second-degree murder. So, but I've tried, those are the 2, probably, I've tried a few vehicular homicide cases too. I've tried DUIs. I've tried aggravated assaults, arsons, false report, drug trials, drug sale cases involving the drug task force. I've tried a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And I learned
a lot of
something.
Different cases too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just the same thing over and over. It's kind of an eclectic.
I've tried, the child sex abuse cases. Those are the worst to try, in my opinion. So I've gotten a very good experience as being an assistant DA in jury trial work, and it's made me a lot better lawyer. And like I say, I learn something new every time I do it. Every time I try a jury trial. Let's see, what else? Was there another question? I kind of got off track.
No, you're doing great. Yeah. I'm enjoying. Yeah, no, I'm enjoying you kind of taking us down this road of, because a lot of people don't know a lot about this stuff. So it's kind of interesting to me just to hear your side of things and kind of what you've done and some of the different cases that you've been involved in, and kind of how that's led to what you're doing now, which is running for the General Sessions Judge, which is kind of what I want to talk about next.
All right.
So tell me exactly what a General Sessions Judge is, because there may be some people listening who, I know what a judge is, okay, but what's the difference? What's a General Sessions Judge exactly?
Absolutely.
Maybe explain that for our listeners.
Well, first of all, I've prosecuted in every General Sessions Court in this district, Cheatham, every county. Mm-hmm. And basically what a General Sessions Judge is, it's pretty much the first court someone goes to if they've been charged with a crime. That can be whether or not be a felony or a misdemeanor. And a felony offense is any offense that's basically more than a year. A misdemeanor offense is any offense that's below 11 months and 29 days. And so how somebody finds himself in General Sessions Court is if a arrest warrant is issued or served on them by a law enforcement officer. So let's take an example. Somebody's driving down the road and they're under the influence of alcohol. Officer pulls them over, determines they're under the influence. They do a breath test or a blood test, determine they're above a .08. At that point, they got plenty of probable cause to issue an arrest warrant for DUI. Mm-hmm. And they take them in custody and take them to the jail. In that case right there, that person's first court they're going to go to, if they can't bond out of jail or if they're sitting in jail, they're going to go in front of the General Sessions Court. Same way with a felony. Let's take, for example, an aggravated assault. That is a C felony in Tennessee. An aggravated assault occurs when somebody assaults somebody either with a deadly weapon or they assault somebody and severe bodily injury occurs, like a broken bone. Let's say somebody, a fight occurs out here, downtown Dickson. Somebody takes a bat to somebody's head and, causes severe bodily injury, and they use a deadly weapon. Officer sees it down the road, arrests that person, takes them to jail. An arrest warrant is issued for aggravated assault. Their case would start in General Sessions Court as a felony. So the main difference as far as felonies and misdemeanors in General Sessions Court is that a felony offense, that aggravated assault, that person cannot resolve that felony. He cannot plead guilty to the felony in General Sessions Court, if that makes sense. The felony would have to either have what they call preliminary hearing, in which, and you can have a preliminary hearing on a misdemeanor as well. It is basically a probable cause hearing in front of the General Sessions Judge, in which the prosecutor puts on proof through the victim or the witness or the law enforcement officer of what occurred and what the defendant did. And if the General Sessions Judge determines that there's enough probable cause that defendant committed aggravated assault, the felony, or the DUI, the misdemeanor, then the judge orders the case is bound over to the grand jury, which is another probable cause hearing in front of the Dickson County grand jury. The grand jury is a lot different than a jury trial in circuit court. In order to get to circuit court, the grand jury has to determine that there's probable cause to issue an indictment, and that case has gone to circuit court. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, you did a good job.
Yeah.
As a high school government teacher, you did a good job.
Thank you. But as far as the misdemeanor, the DUI, that person can plead guilty to the misdemeanor. Any misdemeanor person can either plead guilty or have a bench trial in front of the General Sessions Judge, and that case can be resolved. Now, if you have a bench trial and the General Sessions Judge determines that, that person's guilty of DUI, his defense lawyer can appeal that to circuit court. So that's why a lot of bench trials don't happen, in my experience, because if a General Sessions Judge does determine that the defendant's guilty, that defendant has an option to appeal that decision and have basically another trial in circuit court. Whereas in circuit court, if they're found guilty by a jury or a bench trial, a guilty conviction is entered, but they still have an issue. They can still appeal it to the Court of Criminal Appeals, and if there's any legal issues, that it could be remanded, it could be dismissed. Issues like that can come up, but there's not too many bench trials as far as criminal charges in General Sessions Court. General Sessions Court also handles civil issues in Dickson County. Because in Davidson County, they've got just criminal General Sessions judges and civil General Sessions judges. In Dickson County, the General Sessions Judge handles both. So civil cases that can be handled in General Sessions Court are any suits up to $25,000. Landlord-tenant issues. Also, orders of protection hearings are heard in General Sessions Court. It's basically the first court, that you would go to. If you got a speeding ticket in the county, you would go to the General Sessions. They also have traffic court So
That's a pretty good explanation.
Yeah.
I think that kind of helps us understand the difference between the different courts because, like I said before, a lot of us know the judicial branch of government from our high school class, but we don't realize what that all entails. Or how
and there's no jury trials in General Sessions Court. The only jury trials are in Circuit Court. So, but it is an important court, and I think I would do good with my skill set and my work ethic.
So tell me this: why now?
Okay.
I guess
Why now?
you had a chance, you had the opportunity to sort of sit back and work in a position where you kind of got an idea of all the different potential jobs that you could take on, and you decided that you wanted to run for circuit or for General Sessions judge this year. I just wonder why now and why that particular office.
Okay. That's a great question. So, about a year ago, I got to thinking, I've had a great experience at the DA's office. I've loved my job. And I've had a good experience, being a criminal defense lawyer. But, I grew up in this county, except for the short time I was in college and living in Nashville during law school. I've lived in Dickson County. I'm a lifetime resident. And I've got a lot of pride in this county. And, Sarah Grace and I are raising our kids here. And I decided I wanted to serve this county. And I got to looking at some different positions. And I thought General Sessions, I could do the best for this county myself in this position based on my skill set and my work ethic. I've had perspective from both sides, being a prosecutor and a criminal defense lawyer. And during my legal career, I have had dealt with and have working relationships with victims, victims' families, law enforcement, employees of the clerk's office, various clerk's office across our district. I've also represented clients who were criminal defendants. I've gone to the jail and talked to them. I've had working relationships with my clients' families. And during that time frame, I've learned one thing that's probably the most important, being in this field, the legal field. And that is to treat everyone involved in the judicial system fairly and with respect. But at the same time, don't be afraid to make the right decision based on the laws and facts of each case, even though it might be the tougher decision. I've done that plenty of times as an assistant DA. And that's what I would aim to do if I'm elected.
What qualifications or characteristics of your personality do you think would make you a good judge?
As a prosecutor, I have to use a lot of discretion. What I mean by that is basically, every case you have, not every case is going to go to a jury trial. Not every case is going to be heard in front of a judge. You have to have a lot of discretion in settlement offers that you give out to a defendant or defendant's lawyer based on a defendant's criminal history, the facts of the case, the type of crime that was committed. And I believe in that experience, I've built a pretty good reputation of being fair and just. What I think, because you got to think when you're given a settlement offer, you got to think, well, what do you think a jury? How do you think a jury would handle this case, or when they come back guilty on these facts based on what happened and the law, and what would a judge do in this situation? The judge you're in front of, and all those things kind of factor in when you're given settlement offers. And I believe my experience in doing that would help me tremendously as a judge, because I hate to say this, but you're kind of a gatekeeper, because a lot of cases they get settled between the prosecutor and the defense lawyer before my judge even hears it or ever hears anything about the case. And I think I've got a good way of making sure that in any particular case that a defendant is held accountable, but at the same time, the victim is not forgotten. and I think that would help me out as far as being a judge. I think I have pretty good discretion in applying the laws to the facts.
So I've talked to a lot of different people that are running for office, and I've really enjoyed it because you hear a lot of different people's stories, and you get a chance to hear about the things that they think that they could do here and maybe make things better. And I think that most of the people that are running have something in their mind that they think that they can maybe do just a little bit better than the way it's been done before. Maybe there's something that you'd like to change. Maybe there's something that you see that doesn't really work the right way. But most people that I've talked to that are running have something specific that they kind of have in mind that they want to focus on as soon as they get in office. This is something that I want to change. This is something that I want to look at, maybe doing a little bit different. Is there anything, and I know we talked a little bit before about a few different issues, but what's one issue that you would kind of...
There is one issue that I would like to, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, that I would like to address as a General Sessions judge. Both in Circuit Court and General Sessions Court, defendants are given the opportunity sometimes to get a furlough out of a sentence they are serving to go to treatment facilities, which as a prosecutor, I've signed off on furlough orders. There have been defendants who... A defense lawyer is coming to me and be like, hey, this guy, with this girl wants to go to treatment. And I've looked at them and said, I can't agree to that based on, the facts of the case they're being charged with, or their criminal history, or, they've done treatment before and been unsuccessful. And I said, we'll have to ask a judge about that, or have a hearing in front of the judge if they want a furlough. But I believe there's an issue with the success rate of individuals in Circuit and General Sessions Court of getting furloughed and actually completing the treatment program. Because basically what happens, a lot of the time somebody will come in, I'll just give you an example. Let's say somebody, that DUI we were talking about. That guy pleads guilty to the DUI, there's a minimum 48 hours in jail, and they got to serve. They get put on probation for 11 months and 29 days, and they go down the road. A few months later, they get violated. Their probation's violated. Either they get charged with another crime, or they have a failed drug screen. Be a number of things. A violation warrant is issued, and usually all violation warrants is a hold for hearing. They have no bond, so they're sitting in jail until they come to court, which is about anywhere between a week, 2 weeks. And at that point, they might ask to either they'll have a probation violation hearing, and a judge will say, hey, I'm going to violate your probation, find you in violation, and I'm going to sentence you to serve the balance of your sentence, the balance of that 11 months and 29 days. But you will have the option to get a furlough to a treatment program, either 28 days, 90 days, a year. Most of the time in Circuit Court, it's a year because the sentence lengths are longer. You're looking anywhere from 4 to 8 years on a probation sentence in Circuit Court. And sometimes if they successfully complete that program, a judge may allow them to go back out on probation and finish their sentence on probation. But I got to looking at some stats out of the General Sessions Court here. And so what happens when somebody is furloughed to a treatment facility, and like I say, I'm not against treatment.
Sure.
I'm all for people getting help and getting the treatment they need to change their life around. I've dealt with defendants who I've prosecuted before who have changed their life around, and they've come to me and thanked me, because I gave them the opportunity, or because, I was hard on them and I held them accountable, and they have personally thanked me before, and it made me feel good. But I wouldn't want it to be abused, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Where somebody just wants to get a furlough out of jail just so they can get out of jail.
It's kind of like a loophole.
They're not serious about getting the treatment and the help they need.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to looking so when somebody walks out, say they get furloughed to a 28-day treatment facility, whether it's here in Dickson County or anywhere in the state, Memphis, Lebanon, wherever. There's a lot of good treatment facilities around here. And they go there and they don't complete the program. They just walk out. And they're supposed to go, and in the furlough order, they're supposed to go back to the jail immediately. If they don't go back to the jail, a felony escape warrant is issued.
So they're basically getting out of jail long enough to go get treatment, and then they're supposed to come back.
Yes.
But we've got people that are not actually going to treatment.
They'll go to treatment, but they won't finish.
They'll leaving.
They'll stay a couple days to a week and just walk out.
Just walk out the front door or sneak out the side.
Most of the time, they just walk out and say, I'm quitting. And then the treatment facility they'll notify the jail, and a warrant is issued. And so there has been, since January 14th of 2021 to April the 12th of 2022, there have been 60 felony escape warrants issued. Now, not all, I would say, going through the list of these 60 individuals, 99% were from furlough orders, either entered in circuit court or general sessions. I think there was one that was not involving a furlough order. 26 of these escape warrants out of the 60 stem from a general sessions furlough. 17 of those warrants have not been served as of 4/19/2020. So, and I don't know what exactly the best solution is. I don't know if the best solution would be to, keep these individuals in jail for a little longer and then give them the opportunity to get some treatment if they still want treatment. I don't know if it's to start a recovery court program. I know there's a drug court program at circuit court that has worked very well. I've sent a few defendants to drug court. It's a lot more supervised. It's a 2-year program, and it works very well. And they've got a pretty good success rate. And I don't know if that's feasible in general sessions court, but it's something that I would definitely look into. Because my biggest fear as an assistant DA, whenever I agree to furlough somebody, is or furlough to a treatment facility, I don't want them to walk out and go and commit a serious crime while they're on this furlough status when they should be in jail, or hurt somebody else or hurt themselves. That's my biggest fear. Usually, when I agree to a furlough order, I contact whatever treatment facility they are, and I get them to email me progress reports. So I just kind of stay on top of it. I actually got an email today from a girl that I sent or I agreed to send to a treatment facility. But I think that's an issue that needs to be looked at in general sessions court.
It sounds like it's interesting. You've definitely done your research on it. I have to say, for everybody who's listening, you can't see what's going on here, but he's got lots of notes. He's got statistics here, and definitely came prepared today.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, Talmage, thank you so much for talking to me today. We've had a very interesting conversation. You've been very helpful as far as explaining things to me
Appreciate that.
I knew a little bit about, but I love getting the insight of it. And with it being election season, I think it's good to let people sit down and just kind of give some information and something for the voters to kind of listen to. And
Absolutely.
Some of them might come back and want to ask you some questions. But
I'll be glad to
if
answer.
somebody were to run into you in downtown Dickson here on Main Street and they were to say, "Hey, Talmage, tell me, why should I vote for you? Like, what is it about you that, I should go down here to the polls?" Because I think based on some of these elections that we've had recently, there's not a lot of people going out to the polls.
I know, unfortunately.
So we got to get them out there.
That's right.
Tell them, pretend like I'm a guy on Main Street. Talmage, why should I vote for you?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm a lifetime resident of this county. I got a lot of pride in this county. I want to serve this community where I'm raising my family, and I will not be afraid. I can't make too many promises as a judge, but I can tell you this: I won't be afraid to make the right decision based on the laws and facts of each case, even though it might be the tougher decision. And this is a full-time job, and I will treat it as a full-time job. I'll be at that courthouse 5 days a week, and I'm going to start court at 9 a.m. properly every time we have court. Also, I want to talk about the dates of the election, which is very important.
When is it? Because,
yes, everybody needs to know.
They have to know.
They have to know.
They'll miss it.
Early voting is July 15th through the 30th. Election day is August 4th. So just mark that down. It's 45 days from early voting.
It feels like a long time away.
It's going to be here before you know it.
It's going to approach us quickly.
Absolutely. Just think 45 days from today was April 15th. I mean, went by just like that.
So we've got about 45 days before voting begins. Who is eligible to vote for you?
Any resident in Dickson County.
So everybody in Dickson votes for this particular office.
Yep, it's countywide.
That's valuable to know because with a lot of these commissioner races and
it's different districts,
and some of the judges, is outside the county.
That's right. Some like circuit court judges, they have, other counties besides Dickson County. They have to, they're on the ballot. So, but that's not the case for this position right here.
It's just all voters countywide. In Dickson County.
That's correct.
I need you to go to the polls.
Absolutely. I'd appreciate that.
45 days, right?
Yep. I would appreciate your vote too.
And again, this is Talmage Woodall, who's running for General Sessions Judge.
Dickson County General Sessions Judge. And some contact information. I've got a Facebook page. It's Talmage Woodall for Dickson County General Sessions Judge. I've got an Instagram page as well. It's Woodall, the number 4, Judge. And I've got an email address. It's friendsofTwoodall@gmail.com. If you would like to contact me, feel free to message me on either Facebook or Instagram or email me.
And I'm hoping that, people who are listening to this will come up with their own questions to ask you.
Absolutely.
And maybe, shoot you some questions and talk to you a little bit more and give you a chance to really earn their vote.
I'd appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today. I appreciate it. Really, genuinely, I appreciate it. This is something I've always wanted to do because I feel like the voters of Dickson County need to be informed. And you came today with a lot of information, and you weren't afraid to talk about anything. I mean, before we started, you didn't say, hey, don't ask me about this. You were like, hey, just ask me some questions. Let's talk. And I appreciate that because it gets the information out to the voters. And that's what they tell me all the time is they say, Justin, I want to vote. I want to get more involved, but I don't know anything about these candidates. I don't know what that office is. I don't know what a General Sessions Judge is. I don't know who Talmage is. So now at least we have a place where we can point to them and say, hey, you want to learn a little bit more about Talmage? Maybe you can listen to the podcast.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate it. It's been an honor. Now, good luck with your campaign.
Thank you.
And if anybody's listening who wants to be on the show, I'll let anybody come on that wants to come on that's running in Dickson County. Just send me an email at coachspurlock@gmail.com, or you can send me a Facebook message or whatever. But definitely appreciate Talmage today. We've got some more interviews coming for you, and hopefully everybody's enjoying. Appreciate everybody listening, and thank you again, Talmage.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it.
All right.